Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Uh, we do know that people from different geographies connecting to this webinar. Warm welcome to RateGain webinar, where we want to talk about better tomorrow post-COVID-19 world, particularly in car rental. So let's start with, hoping that all of you watching us and joining this webinar from your homes and safe places are safe with your family and doing well. It's a difficult situation and we appreciate you taking time to join us together in this webinar to know more about car rental company and contribute. So as an organization in RateGain, we have been doing a lot of webinars in cruise industry, online travel agent industries, airlines, OTAs, and we consider ourselves very fortunate that we are in touch with enough car rental leaders across the globe that we were able to create a team where we can share ideas, share our experiences, and see that how exactly the world is going to look like post-COVID. Because if anything we have learned in last 2 to 3 months is that we really need to share as a community and as in spaces. So quickly starting our webinar with a slide, and I will be hosting your slide. Let me introduce myself. My name is Anup Dheeraj, and I am a product manager at RateGain for car rentals, and I have been working in car rental industry for the past 6 years. Have been fortunate to work with a lot of you attendees who have been currently seeing me live. And so a few pointers about this webinar, that how exactly we are gonna take through this webinar is we are gonna start with our panelist introduction, and then we will talk about what happened in Asia Pacific and China market, and how exactly the global situation looks like, how exactly the recovery looks like. And then we can move to our specific revenue management experts in Europe and North America, and we can ask their opinion that, how exactly in their experience things are going to look like. And during the webinar, we will be interacting with multiple ways, and I will be assisting a few attendees to, tell us how you feel about it. And if you have any questions, you can always put in your Q&A section that, for any specific panelist or any specific topic that you want to talk about, you can put your questions, and I'll be happy to put those questions in front of our panelists for their expert opinion. For all your information, let me tell you that this call will be recorded, and it is all under GDPR compliance, so you don't need to worry. So let's start the webinar, and quickly let me introduce to all our expert panelists. Most of the people, all of you would already be knowing, they are very well-known members. So we have Bob Barton, ex licensee head from Hertz, now managing Rentalmatics. Then we have Chris Brown from Auto Rental News. I am pretty confident all of you have been reading his blogs on autorentalnews.com, and the way he has covered a pandemic is pretty commendable. We have a group director of revenue management from Europe Car International from Paris, and he will be happy to share about the European market insights. And we have Ryan Honig, his ex-director of licensees from Avis Budget Group. All of them have decades of experience running the car rental business, and we will be taking notes from them and asking them what else we feel about, and see how exactly the industry is folding up. So yeah, we're moving to the overall agenda of the webinar. It's we will start with an overall impact and state of recovery so far for car rentals. Then we will see what is the recovery checklist for European car rental operators. And then we will see the relevance of airports for car rentals in new normal. Then we will have some fleet utilization and inventory management related information that we'd like to see. And then we will have a closing with what lies ahead in the new normal. So that's the agenda. And Well, let me quickly start. As I have already introduced myself, let me quickly start with the China market, because things have started since January. We have been hearing a lot, about this pandemic and how it has hampered the whole travel industry, be it airline, hospitality, and car rental business. So even before starting talking about car rental, we thought that we need to see how exactly the current situation is. And we wanted to start on a positive note, stating that, yes, we are seeing upward demand curve in the global market. So the graph that you are seeing right now, it shows that the overall number of flights that taking off on a daily basis. And you will see that slightly there is an upward tick. And with more markets opening up across the globe, we are hoping that it's gonna pick up slowly in coming months, and that eventually gonna pick up the demand surge too. So moving to the next slide, we, after airlines, let's talk about hospitality. So even in hospitality, this is a booking trend. RateGain has the distribution platform, and it is an aggregated global booking trend that how exactly from mid-February to early March, the booking almost went to null. And from there, we have been seeing a slight upward. And from first week of May, we have been seeing some slight upward trend of bookings of hotels happening across the globe. So we will be taking, region-wise discussion as well. However, there is an upward demand surge in the market, and we need to plan for a better tomorrow. And that's what this webinar is all about. So let's start again from the China market, that what exactly happened in China, that even the pandemic in the initial 12 weeks, the pandemic reduced the overall pricing in the market drastically. And then in the April and May, for some of the major events like Labor Day, there was almost 300% surge in the pricing. And for Gansu location, and then for Beijing, we also have like 100% surge in the Labor Day. So yeah, in China, we do see that how much time exactly it took for the recovery to happen. So it started somewhere around early March, and then by mid-April to end of April, and then early May, there was a 40 to 60% recovery in a lot of locations. And you can see how exactly the prices have also been surging in May and June. Similarly, we tried to see the situation how it was last year, year on year, in the month of Jan. Similarly, what was the situation of prices in the month of February and April, from February to April, and how exactly the prices looking, further ahead. So if we compare the early Jan, there was China New Year, and the prices were surging compared to last year. It was like almost 22% prices were higher compared to 2019. However, the moment we hit February to April, the demand almost collapsed, and most of the prices in most of the top Chinese locations, the prices almost reduced by an average of 25 to 30%. Then then we also studied how exactly the price is looking compared to last year for May and June, and we see that there is an upward in the pricing overall aggregated in China market for more than 25%. So yep, that's how the China market looks like, and that definitely tells that there is a recovery, a path that is most of the countries are following. And we also collated some information. This is the total number of COVID-19 cases happening on every country. And there are a few countries which are, green, and they have sort of able to mitigate and flatten the curve, and they are in a much controlled position. There are still a lot of other European and Middle East and Latin American locations that still trying to cope up and contain the recovery. However, they're still on the recovery path. So this is the gist from the Asia Pacific and China market, particularly what exactly happened there, how exactly the prices and by how much are surging in China, and how exactly they leverage the demand surge to maximize their yield. Moving to the next slide, from here, I would like to introduce the executive editor of Auto Rental News, Chris, on the line with us, who would give us a perspective from him that he has been covering this pandemic from day one. And he has been seeing the timeline, he has observed the global events. So Chris, over to you to let us know what exactly is your perspective and what would you like to share.
Great. Well, thank you. And it's so good to see so many smiling faces out there that I recognize. Hello from the garage in Los Angeles. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get right to it. And I'm looking to advance my... Okay, let me just get down here real quick. All right, so we're going to start. There we go. I think we've already covered a little bit about what's going on in China, but in talking to local businesses there, they're seeing some really good return of business year over year. The May Day holiday was pretty almost reaching what it was last year. I think you'll find this across global markets that although volume is returning, that pricing is really still underwater. And I think it's important to note in terms of China's recovery compared to other countries' recovery, China car rental doesn't depend quite as much on international inbound as a lot of other markets do, particularly the US and Europe. Just real quick on Australia and New Zealand, they're working on this Australia, New Zealand, Tasmania bubble, which is going to allow travel between the two countries. That's going to really help their recovery. Of course, New Zealand has like no COVID cases. Congratulations to them. I'm told that the local market is slowly getting back to normal, but international inbound is still kind of a far way away. European summer destinations, those are going to suffer this year, and we'll certainly have more insights into Europe in a little bit. Certainly major companies are making a push to local travelers and as a safer alternative to public transport. Of course, we're seeing this in the US as well. I'm seeing or hearing about a 30% reduction in fleet for Western Europe. I think what makes Europe a little bit different than the US is that these cars are under guaranteed depreciation programs with manufacturers of 4 months to 6 months, and that makes it a lot easier for the car rental company to bring the cars back to the OEMs, as opposed to the US, where most of the cars are risk programs bought outright by the car rental companies. Latin America, particularly Brazil, has yet to see their coronavirus peak, and I sense that that's going to be a real issue moving forward. Let's just advance the slide here. And there we go. Okay, actually, it's a little slow on me here. Yeah, so challenges of the present that we're kind of moving into the US market. So volume has definitely improved. I mean, we were looking at 15% volume and actually 15%, 10% utilization in April, and that's really picked up. Stay-at-home orders are lifting. Again, volume is improving, rates are not quite. The real issue is we're still pretty loose on fleet. Most of these companies weren't necessarily able to sell off their fleet. There's no market. Used car opportunities were essentially closed. The auctions were shut down. These are slowly opening up. So hopefully we'll see rates pick up but some markets are back to 75% utilization at this point. What we're looking at here, essentially the market for international inbound travel is so important to markets such as Florida, and has essentially gone away. That's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for any of the Sunshine States, certainly over the summer. We have issues with local rentals, which has taken over as a prime business type. I'm almost over my time here, but I'm gonna keep going just a little bit longer. We've got higher miles are being put on those cars and cash rentals. These lead to stuff like fraud and theft, and so a lot of car rental companies are managing that right now. Here's just a snapshot of what's going on with the major car rental companies in the U.S. Unlike airports and airlines, car rental has not received a federal bailout, but the silver lining with that is that airports who have had a bailout are easing some of the minimum airport guarantees, which gives on-airport car rental companies some relief. The business is not coming in for them, so why should they have to pay the minimum guarantees? This is going on airport to airport, so it's not across the board. Other programs have not quite materialized just yet. As we get out of the recovery, I think the chances are probably slimmer that they will. We are seeing a improved wholesale market, and so I'm looking very cautiously optimistic there. Moving on to the next slide. And I think Ryan's going to touch a little bit about this with the franchisees and independents. Most of them that applied for the PPP money, that's a federal payout, have gotten the money. We may need another stimulus there in order for these businesses to survive, frankly. I'm seeing that around 12 to 15% have suspended operations. We're not sure if they're permanent. The others are still in business. The one thing of the catch-22 about taking PPP money is that operators are having to spend those funds on payroll, but attracting those employees back is difficult because their employees are making more money on unemployment right now than they would be working for the car rental company. Certainly Bob is going to get into contactless deliveries, but we're seeing some really creative ways that and low-tech ways, if you will, about how car rental companies, particularly the independents and the franchisees, are allowing their customers to access cars with contactless. I'm going to turn it over now and stick around because I've got some slides at the end about where we're going in the future of car rental. Thank you.
Sure. Just a quick follow-up question, Chris, is first of all, how exactly marketing work looks like, because you manage the auto rental news, and it's a new paradigm for marketing as well. Car rentals has been trying to do marketing in different ways before pandemic. What would be your point of views on changing landscape of marketing work for car rentals post-pandemic? Means what else they can do?
Well, I think we've seen some major car rental companies, particularly in Europe, make a concerted effort to push specifically for the local renter. I think really in US, marketing efforts really need to be channeled in there. And I really see a big case to be made for business to business rentals. And that's a real, I think, a positive there. It's a much, it's not as fluid as leisure rentals. It's solid business. And I think if car rental companies channel their efforts there, and specifically looking out to their local communities, I mean, look to these companies that might need longer term rentals. Really, this is the time to reach out into your local communities and make those contacts. And, the old way of doing it that Brian and Bob know, bring a box of donuts, drop it off on the front step and say, I'm here. So that's how I'd answer that one.
Well, thank you so much for the insights, Chris. We can quickly move towards European market, how exactly that looks. So, before talking about the European market, we have some data that we wanted to share with our audience is, flights within the Central Europe. Uh, Definitely looking a bit of recovery pattern there. So we have been checking the flight capacity and the number of flights for different routes. And for upcoming holidays, there is definitely some additional routes and additional flights adding in. And see, the best markets we have observed for this surge is, obviously inbound to Berlin. So yeah, Germany, you can certainly start thinking about planning your inbound, then outbound from Geneva, and then from Oslo to Germany. Pretty interesting. There is a bit upward pattern there, and then Zurich to Austria. Similarly, we will be releasing a detailed report with all the analysis on major airports, but these are some top highlights from there. Talking about Europe, we have someone very experienced, who have spent decades uh, in Europe in revenue management. But before doing that, I would like to, take opinion from the audience currently hearing us. Is right now, what do you think is the biggest challenge you anticipate post-COVID-19 world for car rentals? So the options are, tracking demand for correct pricing or fleet utilization or visibility into competition, strategy to benchmark and improving response time to adjust to market. So these are some options, and what do you think is going to be, the biggest challenge? So your answer, and we can, quickly see the results, and based on that, we can see how we are going to talk about the European markets. So I hope all of you are submitting your responses online. So I would request my team member to share the results as soon as we have the responses from the team. Oh, well, so the results look interesting. Out of, I think it's more than 200 votes. It's like optimum fleet utilization is going to be the most important field where there will be a challenge. Yes, deflating has begun since March, and we are still struggling to find the right direction. Then tracking demand for pricing, then visibility into competition strategy, and improving response time. So yeah, we have fleet utilization came up as the biggest challenge. So moving to Europe, I would like to introduce our panelist. He is currently a group director, revenue management and capacity management for Europcar International, based out of Paris, Europcar headquarters. Decade-long work in car rental business, and he would be very happy to share his insights for the European market. So Pierre,
yes, thank you, Wano.
Over to you, sir.
And thank you for your survey, because actually it was not my answer. So I'm very interested to see that half of the people say about fleet utilization. I don't know if because our panel is mixed between Europe and US, but I think that's Chris Brown that said that the big difference we have in our landscape is that the European market is generally linked to the buyback option with the car manufacturer. So basically, after, let's say, more 6 to 8 months, we can get rid of some car and address more easily our utilization rate than the US market or some other market where the second-hand car market is very important to address the future. But anyway, it doesn't mean that it's easy in terms of utilization trend. It's easy in none of the criteria. If you can move from the next chart, I would say, I think the only chart I want to show you to remain human in all what is revenue management in that moment of our life is really to come back to what is the normal, if you Google your revenue management, the normal definition that you will find. So Revenue management should be and is the application of discipline analytics that predicts consumer behavior at the micro market levels and optimize availability, in our case it's fleet capacity, and price to maximize revenue growth. So if we take all the key words of this definition of what is revenue management, you can easily understand in which situation we are, because we have no discipline analytics really to use, because the historical data is, let's say, one of the parameters we like a lot to use in order to understand where we are. And today, historical data is just bringing us to a depressed mood. Then if we consider that, yes, Asia and partly China is out of the problem, but it's absolutely not a kind of market that we could analyze and say, okay, let's copy paste what happened there, and it will make our day. And last thing to clarify why Europe is different about US. It's just the distance. In the US, I have no choice to go from Washington to Miami than taking a plane. And we know that if before the car rental was somewhere in competition with airlines and with train, today this competition landscape is completely changed, because some people, for a sanity reason, they can choose for all what is less than 2.5 hours or 3 hours of journey to decide to take the car. So this means that for sure, talking about consumer behavior today is a nightmare, because the old consumer is dead. The new one, we still have to understand and to discover what he will do, because he doesn't know. Sometimes the new customer still doesn't know what he will do. He will test and probably adopt. And we have to be there and be present and make the customer experience the right experience in order to create our new business model. I like this image, if you want, about the customer is dead, but let's say the new customer is born. It's more positive, no? It's a bit like we say that the mother is born with at the same time than the children. If you are married like me and you had a child, you know that the lady with whom you were before having the first child was not the mother, and the mother is born at the moment there is a child. And now we are newly born in a new scenario of the world, and we will understand what the new customer looks like. I think that's very important, because this will change many of the parameters and the balance of what we could see and what we could say it was the trend in the past. So at my micro market level, what it means that for me, no way to turn back to what was the balance between airport and downtown. For sure, a guy that in the past could have taken a car in Paris to go to Lyon, he would have also evaluate train and airline, as I say. Tomorrow, he can do this, but he can also go on holidays in 2 days, making some journey to Spain or to Italy from Paris or to the Atlantic coast. In the past, he would have do the other way around. He would have taken a plane to save time. And now saving time is not the main priority of the new customer, according to me. It's really to travel safe. This is very important. You want to travel safe. And then, of course, on fleet capacity, 47% of the people say utilization is a nightmare. Utilization will be complex, but more than utilization, I would say distribution of the car in the territory will also will be very complex, because about what I say. So taking decision and put the car at the right place this year, in particular in 2020, is quite complex. So it's clear that if I heard that 12 to 15% of the small car rental player in the US, we don't know if they will reopen. It's a bit also the question mark in Europe. We are less hit, but we can make sure that the competitive landscape will change. And according to this, of course, the volumes of transaction by marketplaces can change a lot. What I can say in terms of revenue management, in addition to this, is that I'm past, before coming to the revenue and capacity management, I was a controller for many years, so I am margin oriented. And what I can say today is that, of course, all our business scenario, they have a big a big question mark is the margin. But I do think that because we have and we can play with capacity versus demand, we have and we will be more and more, maybe more than in the past when we had more volume effects, we will more focused than in the past, even more focused than in the past on margin. So I mean, if we have to do that job, and if we will do that this job in 2020 for some places, we will be very, very cautious that between having a transaction and not taking a transaction with the problem of financing fleet, we will probably select the second option. We will renounce maybe to part of the business if it is inside a business scenario that seems to be not margin positive at the end. That is very important because we have, of course, welcome in Europe the low-cost market phenomenon. And it's also one of the question marks we will see. And Europcar Group has a low-cost brand that is Goldcar. And for sure, let's say the normal behavior of a low-cost customer queuing for hours or for 1 hour, in our case, maybe not more, before taking a car, is not the kind of customer that will be this year very happy. So the contactless, we will talk later after me, contactless will be very important, but generally speaking, I think a premium brand that is giving some certainties on sanitizing part on process that is as fluid enough will be in a certain point this year more important than the price you will grab in the market. And last but not least, we are all aware that the concept of lead time is really completely dead. So we will have to understand what the new lead time are, because some governments in Europe, they are still thinking about what they will have to do. And people, they are really deciding the last minute. And last thing on Europe, Europe is a big world for many, many different reality. So if we see Germany and UK somewhere more resilient, it will take more time to Spain, Italy, and France in a certain extent to recover this year. So I see a very good trend versus the end of the year if the COVID-19 is not re-popping up somewhere. So, but let's say confident that this will not happen. So means everything will move step by step in a teeny way. So we are just building the first brick of the new foundation, and it will require time. It will require to identify very soon what is changing, and it will be also not to copy paste old business model, but build together with the new customer the new business model and the new customer experience. That's my vision.
That's awesome. Pierre, means in last 10 minutes, you have given the whole essence of revenue management. A couple of questions, however, I'll just put one question, as a follow-up on your discussion is you have been talking about mutation, and then business is also mutating, but still it's a new baby born, but it's still car rental. So is there any older revenue management technique that was working before that could still be useful for revenue managers, for our revenue manager professionals who have joined in today? Means they have been doing similar practices for a decade. So there has to be something, that they were doing before, and they can still, utilize that.
Yes. My of course, they are still. I see the templates are still the right ones, but then if you list the number of items you have in my very simple chart, you will see that all of them we have a different weight. So maybe the only clue I would like to give is to imagine in that template the way to change the weight in order to understand. This year, we knew that every 4 years is a bad year. We are lucky in being unlucky in Europe because when you have election in US and Olympic Games, it's a bad year for long-haul business and in particular for US business. But this year, you can make a cross to all what is inbound long-haul business. The European long-haul probably will restart later, but will restart. The domestic is the issue, but as I say, the domestic will materialize differently, because before, if I had a domestic necessity at point B, going from point A by train or by plane, I will have more necessity probably from point A. So I am expecting that the big city will change their volumes and then their behavior. But we are also in competition with the fact that if at point B I need a car, because I have no car. In point A, I have my proper car. So is it this car fitting for my needs, etc.? Again, we are also not only B2C, we are B2B. So I heard before that the long-term business is a good opportunity. I also do believe that it is, because there is a traditional long-term business for the B2B, the business-to-business company, that is taking a car in leasing for 3 years. Today, in the new scenario, investing or taking a risk or let's say be involved for 3 years in a new business development, for example, probably it will be the second level of decision that a company will take. So they will take maybe more car in the short-term business, let's say what we call medium-term products, because they are more flexible. So there will be, and we know that the long-term business is healthy. And by the way, if you look at the numbers during the crisis, it has also been the kind of foundation of our business that has been the more resilient. So this business for sure will help the overall scenario. But all what is really leisure and market oriented, I think will be driven by price increase and volume reduction and very last minute lead time. So use your old template, but be ready to modify the weight of each of your factors.
Great, great. So flexibility, is the definitely mantra going ahead. Thank you very much, Pierre. We will certainly come back as soon as we will start the Q&A. For the European market, quickly taking a look at the Europe's recovery so far, we have been comparing the prices month on month. So comparing the overall aggregated price we had in 2019 means 2019 was on a higher note for the initial January, February, March, April, May, and June. However, in July, it looks like there is a surge, and all the yield managers seems like on top of it to gain as much as they can on the July and September, maybe the end of summer. So on the ending portion for Europe, Greece, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, these are the major markets that seems to be recovering faster. And the bubble would be key to recovery. Moving further, it was great talking about Europe. Talking about US market, we have someone who has been managing a lot of mid-size, small-size, affiliates and licensees on behalf of Avis Budget Group Corporate for last whole decade, long-term experience in car rentals, and he is still doing an excellent work as a consultant in car rental. So Ryan, over to you for embrace us on the US market situation.
Thanks, Anoop. I appreciate that, and I want to make sure you can hear me okay.
Yes, audible.
Yes.
Great, thank you. So yes, I'm going to kind of elaborate and emphasize a few of the points that were made by Chris and even Pierre that seem to be not just in the US, but also global at this point. So 3 of the topics that I'm going to speak on just to outline are going to be some of the trends in the US markets, very high level ones, changes within the mid-size US car rental companies that they should introduce or even emphasize within the revenue management, along with some possible opportunities to help with the revenue declines. So as it relates to the trends in the US market, again, there's certainly some reoccurring themes here. Airport growth is still hindered at this point, but it's certainly showing signs of life. Flights are being added back to popular markets, and as much as they try to enforce all these social distancing guidelines, these flights tend to be full. I think a lot of that is kind of settled out for at the time. I know for a while the flights were canceled relatively close in, and just the airlines were certainly trying to maximize their efficiency in that model. But I mean, it's good to see that they're starting to add some flights back, and then hopefully that'll add to some more of the some future business, of course. But one of the other trends we're seeing is that there's more regionalized trips. These are, and by regionalized trips, I'm talking about drivable destinations for the consumer. I think that's going to be the trend for this, at least for this summer, where if they can get there 3, 4, 5 hours, you know, for a longer stay, they may not be likely to fly. Hopefully it'd be a rental car or some type of other mobility solution at that point. We are also seeing that of course, Chris had mentioned this, and Pierre had mentioned this as well. Prices are still down. They've stabilized in most markets. On a positive note, the length of rental is certainly up. You've heard of a few folks talk about the longer term rentals. That's definitely a focus and has been a focus for quite some time for so many reasons. It's I think some of the increase in the LOR is possibly, of course, due to the decrease in rates. I'm seeing low rates in some markets as $50 a week, all the way up to more normal prices. So it's certainly all kind of a large pendulum swing from one end to the other. And of course, with the pandemic, there was a shift to the local market. The airport fees were certainly driving away customers. And with a lot of the airport car rental facilities being in either an offsite or somewhere positioned within the airport, it is hard to get into the airport spaces to even rent a car. So that's certainly going to push people away. But where it's not already in place, I do know that several operators have already asked airports to make more accommodations for possible customer parking temporarily, and or even waiving some of the fees that they would charge for local customers specifically. I know that's already in place in quite a few airports, but I believe there's a few other airports or operators who have been lobbying their local airport to make that a consideration temporarily, just so that they can get some foot traffic. So changes as for some of the mid-sized U.S. Car rental companies, you know, there should absolutely be a focus on the larger vehicles. They seem to be in demand and will be in demand in the near future. It doesn't mean the smaller cars are going away, but it's hard to fit a family of 5 in a economy or compact car for certain. You want to continue to focus on the longer lengths of rental. This would be your 7-day or more, of course, even the monthly and or lease business, depending on what you prefer to call it. But the longer lengths certainly do support the trend that we're seeing, and I think again the trend from a pricing standpoint has certainly driven most of that. If you're in a market that supports one-way business, you can always look at maybe stepping up in the one-way department, especially with a lot more regionalized. I think you'll also see some more longer round trip rentals come out of this. Mileage, of course, is going to be a concern, but it's kind of the nature of the beast at the moment. And just to kind of my last point here, some of the business opportunities to help offset some of the revenue declines, and some of these have been shared. I won't take credit for any of them, of course, but they've been shared throughout numbers of conversations I've had, and some are more fundamental car rental, if you will, where they it's just go back to the basics. There's a lot of still unknowns out there in the world and what's going to happen, whether it be additional waves, further quarantines, or whatever unrest sits ahead of us. But I think the focus on brand and location identity is going to be big for many operators, with people hitting the reset button, businesses hitting the reset button, the opportunity to enhance customer service and develop loyalty or future revenue streams is going to be quite large. Quality and cleanliness of the vehicles and customer facing areas are going to be key. I think, again, it's going to be more prominent than even price in some cases, is the safety of the customer. A few other ones, if you're not already doing this, this would be prepaid rentals. I would say that just in the conversations I've had with other franchises throughout the country, multiple brands, that the prepaid rentals have increased actually during this time, with no specific reason to attribute to that, because the discount may not be there, or maybe it was. Maybe it's just the reassurance of having paid for it in advance. Not too sure, but nonetheless, it continues to be a growing opportunity. Along with the subscription services, especially for some of the larger or for the longer term rentals, those do continue to be growing opportunities and more increasing in popularity. I know Bob is going to touch on a couple things like contactless delivery, as well as a few other opportunities. So go ahead, you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, so thank you very much. And that was really insightful, Ryan. First of all, we have questions coming in, and please be assured that we will have a Q&A session at the end, where we will cover all the top questions we are having. So Ryan, just a quick follow-up question from you as well, based on the feedback we are getting from the audience. US right now is certainly most volatile when it seems assessing the demand, when exactly it's going to surge, the number of cases, and compared to Europe, markets are opening up, but we wanted to have a ground level situation understanding from you that based on current situation we have, what is the timeline that you see as a recovery, that means at least talking about 60 to 80% recovery of 2019? Is it going to be quick, like next 3 months, or you would suggest revenue managers to be a bit more patient and see how market is going on?
Question, their topic's a little more relevant. There's no national everybody reopen. Even if the efforts are there, it seems to be handled at the local or the state level at this point. So some states are saying we're not going to open up at this point, where we still have concerns. Others, if you were there, you wouldn't even know that they were quarantined at all in some cases. But the recovery has certainly started in a lot of key markets, which is going to help with the future of it. I see the forecast just from a 30,000 foot level. The demand is going to be there. It's really going to start, I think, July. The next 30 days are when we want to start ramping up. But the fleet utilization aspect of it, that's still the unknown. I think there's going to be there's cars in certain markets where it's in excess, but there are other markets that the fleet has tightened up quite nicely, where I think they'll see a pretty good price increase as we get towards the peak of the summer. I do know some markets have even sold out in some instances over the past 2 weeks or so, once their market started to open up, but they were at lower fleet levels, and their competition were also constricted a little bit with their own fleet. So that perfect storm, if you will, for that opportunity.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. So yeah, again, thank you very much for all the ground level insights from North America. And yeah, this is what we have covered for all our audience. We started with China market and how exactly it has sort of showing great recovery signs and have started seeing the demand surge. Then we have Europe. We get to know that how flexibility is going to be the key in Europe from Pierre, and then we have got the information on United States. Moving further on our webinar, the next panelist we have, most of you would have been knowing him for a long time, 30 years in automobile industry, car rental business, and have headed multiple business verticals within Hertz. So Bob, please go ahead. We would like to know the recovery checklist for car rental operators, particularly focusing, we are also getting a lot of questions around fleet management. So I will, I would like to increase the timing for the Q&A too in later, but yeah, please go ahead. Over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Anup. I appreciate it. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Anup, you have control of the slides, right? So you'll flip. Yeah. So here becomes the big thing, and I'm not going to read these slides. They're just up for information purposes. I can happily get them to anyone and speak to anyone about them after the fact. The biggest thing I want to stress here is it's the same situation that's going on in the hotels. It's the same situation that's going on in the airlines. What's going to be very important, and some of the panelists have already mentioned, it's not going to be geared on what historically has been, what is the price of the car. They're going to want to know that the car is clean, the car is sanitized, the people have properly prepared the car, and it's not just about the procedures on you taking care of your car and cleaning it properly and sanitizing it. It's going to be about creating environments of contactless rentals, but also just as important, and I think it's important to focus, you need to spend some time educating your staff. It's not just about the physical social distancing, but what is the message that your team is portraying to the consumer to give that consumer a level of comfort and satisfaction and feeling that they're hearing the right thing, that they know the vehicle is properly maintained. They're not in your QTA cleaning the vehicles with you, and how that message is conveyed. It can be done. Some of the car rental companies are already, putting brake seal stickers on cars that when the doors close, it's sealed, that vehicle is sanitized. Some of it will be done via greeters in the offices and how you're speaking to your staff. If you don't feel comfortable, there are some very good operators. I'll just mention FPG as an example. Frontline can help you educate those folks because the messages they convey is going to be key. Obviously, this is a cost factor. You're going to be looking at increased costs relative to do this, and that's where you need to start thinking about going towards contactless and letting technology pick up the pace for you. Anup, flip over, please. So think of the journey, right? And again, I'm not going to read these, but the ultimate goal, long term, is going to be putting yourself into a situation where you've almost gotten to where the airlines are. It is completely paperless. It is completely done with your telephone. The ancillary products in the airline, whether it's seat upgrades or baggage, is all handled through an app, either an Android or an Apple phone, and that's where you really need to go. In car rental, it gets a little more confusing and a little more technical because the aspect of click delivery and revenue management, you also have to go through validation of scanning a driver's license, signing on your phone, having the app to unlock and lock your car, as well as obviously operate the vehicle when you're out, return that vehicle. This is going to be a change in dynamic. Our company, as well as many others, already have applications to do this. I will suggest to you that the assertive, the entrepreneurs, the smaller companies, they will be able to adapt and embrace this faster, which will give them a competitive edge against the larger majors, because obviously the majors, it comes into integration on very standalone operating systems and technology, and the independents, the franchisees, the mid-size operators will be able to embrace this. It will absolutely have an impact on customer satisfaction, but if you do it smartly, you will be able to reduce your costs and validate that you can actually do it with fewer people. If a customer is signing for the vehicle on his phone app, if he's validating his driver's license, that's less time and personnel for you. Utilize technology and things like geofencing to increase not only the knowledge of where your fleet is and how important utilization is now more than ever, but you can also utilize productivity tools. What people don't think about is you can geofence a fuel island or a cleaning area where you clean your vehicles. Not only do you know people are working efficiently relative to how many cars are going through that area within an hour, it's also giving you not only a data point to verify your staff is actually physically cleaning the car, it's also giving you productivity reports, and you can identify, I mean, let's face facts. An employee could say, I cleaned the car thoroughly. You may not be able to see whether or not they wiped down the entire vehicle with antibacterial spray. But if the vehicle is in and out of the area that's geofenced in 45 seconds, that vehicle was not cleaned. If the vehicle's there for 4 or 5 minutes, you have a comfort level that in all likelihood that vehicle was cleaned. So, Anoop, you want to flip? So you have to think about, again, I'm not going to walk through all of this. You have to think about how this is going to change in the marketplace. What I would encourage everyone to look at, and if you take this in the context of what I'm saying of the perception and the reality of what the customer believes, if you've seen what the airlines are doing, and I think it's Hilton and Marriott have already adopted it, they are now purchasing portable fogging machines. So as an airplane comes into the gate and the customers disembark, they will walk from the back of the plane forward with a portable, it almost looks like a vacuum cleaner, a portable fogging machine that will fog an entire airplane in less than 5 minutes, and it dissipates into the vehicle, and 5 minutes after you've done it, you can board that plane again. It will be the same thing for hoteliers. It is a perfect opportunity to adapt this to car rental. You don't need hundreds of machines. You need the same number of machines as if you're operating at an airport fuel pumps. Or if you have two car washes, you need 2 machines, because literally you will close up the vehicle except for one door and probably take 90 seconds to fog that vehicle. And by the time that vehicle is done being washed, the fog will have dissipated and you can get back into the vehicle, bring it around out front for the consumer, and you have a completely sanitized vehicle. Marketing that, teaching your people how to communicate that, articulate that to the consumer when they rent the vehicle or they're making their reservations, even having video clips up on your website as to how it gets done, that will be as important as anything, particularly in the near term and long term as the business continues to change and evolve. Anoop, you want to flip? So just before we get back to Chris, go forward, again, I think there's 4 key elements you got to look at, and this really is globally. You have got to be looking at how you're cleaning those vehicles, how you are communicating that message to the consumer at the time of reservation as well as the time of rental, and how are you validating that your people are actually doing it, because this will be critical in the new world order on how you're going to be able to operate, and fundamentally having a telematics product that can assist in going contactless, but also to manage your vehicles and your utilization is going to be key in the future. Thanks, Anoop.
Well, thank you very much, Bob. And yeah, it was really insightful. I think the fleet managers or inventory managers would have a lot of ideas from this conversation. And we also have a couple of questions on fleet management. So I would request the participants to please wait a little. Let's have a quick closing comments from Chris, and then we can quickly move to the Q&A.
Sure, thanks. Are we going to do our poll here, the Menti poll, or I see that slide up here?
Yeah. So by the time Chris doing a closing comment, let me inform our participants that you can quickly go to menti.com and use the code 485849. And you can enter some words that you feel that which area of your business will you make the maximum investment to boost demand. So, there will be n number of areas. I'm not going to say any words, to, bias any particular or give ideas. But yeah, I would request participants that what they feel is that's where they're going to make the maximum investment, so that as a car rentals professional group, we can have an idea that how everyone is, feeling about it. And we can see that some, investments information are already coming in. So yeah, great. So we see fleet, we see technology. Again, fleet is maximum. So fleet and technology. And then we have some social media and digital marketing as well, staff training, newsletter marketing. Well, great stuff. So, this is how I believe our attendees can actually see that as a group of car rental professionals, what we think is going to be really important in coming months, and where exactly they will be investing. Well, great. Looks like we have great response. We can quickly move to the closing section with Chris.
Sure. And I will just, I'm trying to advance the slide here, Anoop. I don't know if I have controls. Okay, there we go. Waiting for that lag. And Anoop, I think I'm, if you could just advance the slides, that would be fantastic.
Yep. Aditi, can
Okay.
you please share the slides?
While Aditi is getting that slide up, let me just say that my my remarks are going to look real quickly. There we go. Through sort of exiting the pandemic, what car rental might look like next year, and what we might look at a little bit further down the road. I mean, I think we're going to see for local rentals a benefit to car rental, just as Bob said, in terms of being able to have a sanitized vehicle. I love the idea of a sticker on the vehicle that kind of says that it's sanitized. And I have heard about these fog bombs to clean the cars out. This is also being used in car sharing as well. This landscape is just being ripped apart, and in ways that could benefit car rental. But we're seeing a renegotiating of minimum annual guarantees at airports, which could be just a percentage of revenue only. That will for sure benefit car rental, and I think those talks are starting right now. And essentially, it's airport to airport. Certainly we'll see drive vacations this summer. Again, we've got to watch overall miles there. We've had reports of folks already traveling, 9,000 miles in 10 days. And this is going to be a killer, obviously, for profitability. So we've been, we're looking very closely in the US on the used car market. I think that we have seen a recovery in wholesale market. We have seen days supply at dealerships shrink, and this is going to benefit car rental. There are some signs, some bumps in the road that this may not be quite an uneven recovery in the market. There's some overhang with used leased return, extension return, and some other supply issues. But I think looking at days supply right now in the used car market leads to positive selling into the used car market for car rental. Now, car rental, as we know, right now is standing pat with buying vehicles. The actual buying patterns have been reduced to just about zero. Most of the repurchased cars in the US have been returned to the auto manufacturers, and we're going to see kind of a flat line for fleet for a while. And then we might see fleets opportunistically selling excess fleet into the used car market. This will really be an interesting time period looking at utilization, because we are not following the demand or the usual curves of how car rental sells back into the market and acquires vehicles. Fortunately or unfortunately, we may see car rental have to leave some business on the table because they don't have the fleet to satisfy the rentals. I guess this would be a best case scenario, right? I think ultimately this year we're going to see the rate environment still be underwater, and frankly overall profits are going to be underwater, and that's just because of the curtail in business year over year. Of course, we're seeing stuff move forward. We're seeing stuff pick up as the months move on. I think the fourth quarter is going to be a really good fourth quarter for car rental. But again, let's wait and see on that one. Okay, next slide. Sure. So next summer, I see the benefit of the car rental companies not buying fleet for quite a while and not having the resources financially to buy fleet. And also in light of a bankruptcy globally here and in the US, that this is we're going to be looking at a restricted, maybe undersized overall fleet. And this is obviously going to benefit pricing. And, as we saw post the Great Recession, or during the Great Recession, overall revenues were depressed, but that price per unit per vehicle was the best in years. And I think I have a feeling we're going to see that environment return next year. And essentially that's a supply issue, right? That's going to drive this. So sure, overall revenues simply can't match what they did in 2019. We saw record years in the US for overall car rental revenue, and that has been a steady growth out of 2009. That is obviously not going to continue in 2020, and I suspect in 2021. What happens moving farther, I'm not really sure, but we will definitely see a curve upward. I've been preaching, what the future looks like without a car rental counter, and I think we can finally start to see what this future looks like, not just for loyalty customers going straight to the car. And I'm not talking about a completely decentralized fleet. I'm talking about an app-based experience where car rental customers can just basically go straight to the car and just let's face it, sitting in a line of 25 people is that's from 20 years ago. Now, we be worried about being able to sell ancillary? It's going to have to migrate to an app, but we've seen some success with that companies like Avis has reported. I also think that if you can migrate to an app-based car rental, then hey, what happens to OTA fees when that happens? You're going to a branded app, and getting rid of that percentage of OTA fees will certainly cover a lot of ancillary revenue loss that you might potentially have. We're also seeing deliveries being a bigger part of rentals during the pandemic, and we're also seeing third-party companies coming in with opportunities to take excess fleet. Now, we've seen this before, but I think this is going to I think it's going to take hold, where they don't have a brick and mortar location. It's a place to park excess fleet from various companies that is for delivery of rental cars and pickup of rental cars. Now, it's a big ecosystem that is managed by an algorithm, and technology is allowing that to happen more than it has so in this iteration of 1.0 a few years ago of delivery rentals. Let's go to the next slide, Aditi. Great. So down the road, I mean, you know, who can predict what's going to happen 5 years from now, right? But you know, I think that car rental still controls the majority of the airport customers. I mean, those contracts with the airports are solid. I don't necessarily see ride hailing, this asset light model necessarily taking that much more of the customer at the airport specifically. And I think the airport car rental customer will benefit from a better experience, a more seamless experience. You know, to Pierre's point and Ryan's point, length of rental, we're starting to see this. I'm starting to see this in local markets where consumers don't want to be tied down to a 3-year lease, and perhaps what that might take for car rental on a state-by-state basis is relaxing laws where contractually a contract needs to be re-signed every 29 days. I know a lot of companies are doing it where the customer comes in and signs a contract again, and goes on their business, and they're doing quite well with these long-term rentals. We've been talking about B2B rentals. I think that that's going to continue. I think that there is, you know, the market for Hertz's used vehicles or defleeted daily rental vehicles going to ride hailing, I think that'll return, and I think that is a profitable niche for car rental with the right units, and I see that type of B2B rental returning. I also do think there's a real market for B2B rentals that could grow. It's steady business and profitable business for seasonal needs for a lot of different types of businesses. I was talked about the third-party fleet aggregators that essentially are an app-facing consumer experience for rental. I think we're going to see more of that. You know, autonomous vehicles. I follow the autonomous vehicle market pretty closely, and I think the last use case scenario is robo-taxis. I don't see this being an issue for car rental 5 years down the road. I see it an issue for car rental being 10 years down the road. And, you know, I guess we'll save that for another conversation. One interesting thing that I see now that this landscape is completely ripped up would be as a result of a major bankruptcy here in the US, may we see refranchising of some markets? I can't answer that question right now. I don't think anyone can. We'll need to see what 2.0 of Hertz looks like, but that could be an opportunity, I think. I guess that kind of ends my comments. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for the whole summary and how exactly the road ahead looks like. It's great insights, Chris. We have a couple of very good questions, and you know, I would quickly like to move to our Q&A session where I can discuss you know, quick questions. So one of the interesting questions that is coming up is around COVID-19 surcharges. So for European market, I would like to ask Pierre, there is question that are operators charging COVID-19 surcharges in order to offset the additional costs, or any federal guidelines around it, or what is the situation in Europe with that?
Well, the market is analyzing this possibility because, of course, there will be a cost. But generally speaking, what the customer wants in Europe is a bundle price. So it's a price where everything is included. So is the trend of increase of prices enough to absorb this cost? I think so. But I think we should also play transparent relationship with customers, saying that there is a cost, an additional cost to be behind this. We should not mark up that cost, but we should make it happier and make it pay. So it's going in that direction. And then there is also the aspect of the B2B for this as well. I think the B2B, they should accept also that in order to guarantee the right level of security for their people, we have to increase our level of sanitizing, and this has a cost. So I'm pretty confident that, because if we take it, I repeat, not like a way to make additional money, but just a way to make the customer incurring a charge that we have anyway together in a market that is very under pressure in terms of margin. I think it will be something that the customer can accept, so that we move in that direction.
Yeah, and following up on that, Pierre, there is also a question that will European Union and insurance providers relax rules to allow vehicles sourced in one country to be used in another? And I think that is a relevant question in this situation.
It is a problem I am really sensible with, because we had the opportunity in some forum to pass some question to the European community. And it is exactly one of the questions I put on paper, and I asked them to check. There are, according to the countries, different rules. It's still a bit difficult. Sometimes you have to re-register the car. Today, they have not moved yet. So the countries having and facing difficulty to do so, they do not have, and they won't have very quick answer. As far as I know of today, I hope that tomorrow my legal department will say to me, we received a letter saying exactly the contrary. But I'm a bit not so optimistic that this will happen very quickly.
Great. So Ryan, just quick closing comments from you on, again, COVID-19 surcharges in North America market. Any thoughts from you of how consumers in North America you feel are gonna react to that, or is there any possibility?
Sure. At the moment, I'm not aware of anybody who has instituted one, but I know there has been some discussions, just like Pierre had said, whether it's analytical or more just the idea of yet another line item on a receipt of a tax and fee that could go into place. I can just tell you from a food perspective, even they've just started adding it back into their overall prices, right? So the pizza I paid for was $1 more the other night. So it's just like that. So I think any opportunity to not have this is good from a pricing perspective. All we are trying to do is recoup cost. I just don't know if the appetite is there to have this, but I'm not aware of anybody who has one in place at this point.
Right. Well, that's great. We have a lot of questions and very limited time, so we still have the option to respond to the questions with the comments from our experts on the panel directly to the email. So keep putting in your question, and we'll be happy to respond to you individually. We have very limited time right now, so let us quickly, see that this is the overall situation we saw with North America, Europe. We wanted to cover Latin America. There were a lot of questions around that. Unfortunately, we have very limited time, but yeah, we will keep working to release some insight reports or some other webinar for Latin America market. Talking about reports, RateGain is again releasing their second edition of how exactly the COVID-19 has impacted the pricing paradigm in Europe market, considering every domestic and inbound combinations that are very prominent and high yield. So that will be a very interesting report. We will be releasing it soon this week. And I hope all of you who have been asking a lot of questions on the European side will have a lot of information in that report. So again thanks all the panelists, and you had contributed to our initiative of a Better Tomorrow, and as a community of car rental professionals, I think we have very less webinars happening around the globe. So yes, your contribution is really appreciated, and we are still open for questions. Please keep submitting your questions, and we will make sure that a particular panelist relevant to that question will be answering to your queries. So again, thank you very much, guys. I hope all of you remain safe, maintain social distancing, and most importantly, be happy and stay as much time as possible with family with this COVID-19 situation. And that's the strength that we have. And we really believe, based on the discussion so far, is that yes, the road ahead is positive. We need to be flexible. We need to be affirmative on our initiatives, and the travel industry as well as the car rental industry is going to flourish like before. Definitely a new baby, but definitely a lot of potential even in the new environment. So thank you very much for all the participants joining in. This is a good night from India, from my side, and a very good day ahead for people in North America, and good evening for the people in Europe. So thank you very much. Have a good one, and take care of yourself.